Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm going to recap episode 6 of 4 Minutes. Thank you so much for all of your patience. I really appreciate it. I posted in my community tab a few times about the fact that this video was going to be late, and it seems like a good few of you saw it. I was out of town. I went to the US Open and it was so much fun, but now I'm back. I scrambled through this script to try and be as thorough as I'm used to being, but still get this video out as quick as I could. So I hope you guys enjoy it. This was a huge bombshell episode. I feel like we learned a lot, but kind of also not at the same time. Like things I kind of think we already knew or suspected, but we got confirmation on a lot of things. We got some new details, and the end has a very explosive surprise. I'm just going to jump right in so we can get this video started. Episode 6 opens on police cars, sirens blaring, pulling up to Toneclaw's apartment. The gate is locked. Toneclaw's fortress is as impenetrable as the man himself. Sorry, that wasn't meant to be an innuendo, but it kind of was. Wynn directs the police to jump over the fence, forcefully breaching Toneclaw's defenses without a thought, violating him without a second thought. The police go into Toneclaw's apartment, and when they emerge, they tell Wynn that he seems to have already fled. The man is no longer there. Invading his space won't get you any closer to him. This could be a sort of sexual innuendo if I haven't already made that clear enough with my word choices. Toneclaw carefully guards his innermost self, his true self, but doesn't seem to mind as much using his outer space, his body, as a tool. We see that most clearly actually with Wen, so this scene parallels that pretty well. Remember, I am of the opinion that these scenes before the opening credits are from another version of reality before Great starts changing things. I don't know how true that is now, considering the whole Toneclaw having visions of Dome and his dead cat thing, but it's the best guess I have at the moment. Then we get the opening credits scene. When the show resumes, we see Great again from episode 1. He's hit Mani with his car, but like the first time, he just drives off. He doesn't stop. And there's no vision, no going back in time 4 minutes to convince him to change his mind and do something different. We flash to time in the hospital. The evening news reports a tip from a concerned citizen that led police to a middle-aged woman dead in a tunnel after an apparent hit and run. Mani. The police are reviewing CCTV footage to try and catch the driver. Is this our original timeline? Are we seeing events as they would have played out if Great hadn't gone back in time to do the right thing? Dr. Den slams a huge file box on the counter beside Time, making him jump. They trade small talk, then Den asks if Time thinks that they'll catch the driver. Time says it depends on how rich the driver is. Den says Time's answer showed great social insight. Then he tells Time about his research into cardiac arrest patients. Not super detailed, but similar to what we've heard before. Time isn't very interested. Then he gets distracted by a phone call from Nacha, his girlfriend. Den leaves, Time answers the call, and then walks off screen. The scene changes to him. Come on. You need some help? Come on. Come here. The scene changes to him walking to a woman on a balcony of the hospital. Nacha. She's just a woman, as far as I can tell. She isn't any other character that we've met so far. She complains that Time has been busy lately and that he's changed in the past 2 years. Time is confused and protests, "I've always been like this." Nacha disagrees. She says she's helped Time for years with his grandma and with other things, but he never considers her feelings. Time scoffs but says nothing. Natcha just nods and says they have nothing else to discuss and walks away. I guess that means they broke up. Is this what happened in our timeline too? Time took the call and walked away in the scene that we saw, but we never saw them have a conversation. We never saw the aftermath. It went from the phone call to the scene where the nurses are talking about how the two of them have broken up. The scene changes to Great's familiar family dinner, different angles of the same situation. Great takes his plate and goes to the other end of the table to sit alone. This time, though, he killed Mani instead of saving her. I ordered them to delete all the CCTV footage, Great's dad announces. Silence. Korn and Great's mother look concerned. Korn even calling Great's name. Great just looks at his father and says, "And?" Great's dad scoffs, explaining that Great has killed someone. Does he still not realize how serious the situation is? Great bites back that his father just got rid of the problem to avoid tarnishing the company's reputation, not to help Great. His mother freaks out and tells him to thank his dad, and he does, in the most unthankful sounding, bratty tone he can possibly muster. The dad starts yelling, saying he almost had to grovel to the police and that Great is ungrateful. The dad slams his hands on the table and stalks around it to Great, the mom chasing after him. Great stays in his seat, his entire body tense, but refusing to move as he watches his dad approach. I love how mirrored and even this shot is, everything perfectly centered and reflected. Like their perfect family is just a mirror, reflecting back what they want to be seen instead of the reality. I thought the dad was walking toward Great, but he just walks out of the room. In the aftermath, alone at the table with just Korn, Great laughs. It's not a joyful noise. Then we flash to Great and the fateful phone conversation with Tidal about the clip Dome took of Tidal and View fighting. It progresses the same. Tidal has something fun for Great to help him with, and he's on his way to Great's condo. We see the time for real, 10:43 p.m. It flashes to the swamp and the lighthouse. Dome on the ground trying to crawl away as Tidal stalks back to him with Great left in the background. This time, not knowing what will happen, Great watches Tidal beat Dome to death. Once he's done, Tidal drops the rock. I presume in the same place Wynn finds it the next day, which we've already seen in the opening title sequence of one of the previous episodes. Tidal asks if Great is going to help him get rid of the body, I presume. Great looks disturbed, but just asks why Tidal didn't call his father's men to handle the situation. Tidal says he didn't want his dad to know. He's so annoying. He tells Great to help him carry Dome's body, and Great agrees. Great helps Tidal throw Dome's body in the water. He asks if Tidal thinks anyone will catch them. Tidal asks, why would they? Dome was stressed. He just jumped in the water and killed himself. And if the police did go looking for anyone to blame, they certainly wouldn't look at the two of them. Great seems much more disturbed and affected by their situation than Tidal, but in the end, he does help him get rid of the body and just walks away. He looks over his shoulder several times, clearly conflicted, but he still does it. Tidal says drinks are on him, and they start to walk back to the car. Just as they do, the camera changes, as if it's a camcorder recording them. The time is 11:50 p.m. It's only for a few seconds, but who could be recording them? Where from? Was it Dome setting up some insurance in case things went south? Or is someone out there in the dark watching them? Tidal asks if Great is still stressed about what they've just done, as if it didn't just happen 5 seconds ago. Of course, Great says. Someone died, you know. The camera flashes between the POV that we're used to and the camcorder style recording. Even the audio changes, which is an excellent touch. Title turns and appears to see the camera. He runs off screen and does something, maybe unplug something. I don't know. Maybe it's the backup camera on his car. Either way, he unplugs it and the camcorder ends. The scene changes to Great sleeping in his room, everything in grayscale. It's 4:50 a.m. He's highly distressed, replaying the situations with Mani and Title and Dome in his mind. The music is low but quick and tense, almost like a thundering heartbeat. We get a brief interlude of Akira eating some sponsorship cat treats. This scene in particular reminded me a bit of The Telltale Heart, really with the music in the background, similar to the Black Cat short story being paralleled with Toneclaw. I feel like maybe not quite the same comparison, but in The Telltale Heart, if you haven't read it, the main character of the short story kills someone. And I believe, if I'm remembering the details correctly, boards their body up either in their wall or under their floorboards and is basically driven mad with the thought that he can still hear the man's heart beating. And that's kind of what the background music of this scene really reminded me of. Great is clearly dealing with insomnia and some other problems, so he decides to go to the hospital to get some medicine. When he enters, he's wearing a mask. Time walks beside him, talking on the phone. Parallel lines instead of perpendicular. There's no connection, no fated crash, forever bisecting their lives into before and after. There's just this two people hovering on the edge of changing themselves forever, always close, but never touching. They get so close. Great walking in front of time. But at the last moment, someone calls Time's name and he stops walking just before impact. They don't crash. They don't connect. They don't meet. Time, however, does hear Great telling his name to a nurse when he goes to pick up medication. He hears the family name and immediately perks up like a bloodhound on the scent. A very handsome bloodhound. I'm thinking this explains the difference between the intimate scenes that actually happened in our timeline in the glamping tent and what Gray initially saw when they bumped into each other in the hallway. Was he seeing echoes of what would have been if things were different? Time purposefully stands in Great's path as he turns to leave, letting them bump into each other. There's a brief moment, Great barely looking at Time, not even meeting his eyes over the rim of his face mask, before Great just walks away, like in the original timeline, not helping Time pick up his dropped items. Time looks struck, but not like he did originally. Not like my personal belief that he was struck by sexy, gorgeous Great in his low cut top, being all traumatized and handsome, all alone in the hospital. This look is similar but calculating. We know now why Time knew his name when he saw it written on the flower card. There's no other connection for them to form first. There's just Time's mission before he ever even sees Great's face. One tiny moment, a few minutes difference, Time seeing Great after he knew his name instead of before, and it changes everything. Great goes out to his car and drives off. Time is surreptitiously following, filming him. The scene changes to a bar, which is familiar to us from the trailer. I'm beginning to think, was most of the trailer from the original timeline? Time rocks up in full honeypot mode. Very fun to have Nan as the inside woman doing the nitty gritty on the daily, while Time plays the femme fatale. Time is so tall, he has to duck under the partition into the bar area. He's in full seduction mode, his hand even lingeringly brushing the molding of the dropped entryway. The game is afoot, but only one of them knows they're playing. Time slow-mo sexily leans against the bar and says, "Careful bumping into anyone else with all the drinking." I guess this means like Don't make bad decisions when you're drunk. I didn't really get that as a pickup line, but maybe it was a translation thing. Great looks up, gives him the classic up and down, but doesn't seem impressed and just looks back at his drink. Time reminds Great who he is. I'm the doctor you bumped into at the hospital. I love the look Great does just for himself before he turns back to Time. It's almost like a playful smirk, like he was just going to relax and wallow in his own trauma for the evening, but Time just dangled a fat, juicy mouse in front of Great's face for him to chase. A screenshot really doesn't do that expression justice, and that's just what I read on his face. Like father, like daughter, I suppose. Very similar to how Akira was eyeing those cat treats. He looks over at Time and asks, "You followed me?" "No," Time says. "I was coming here anyway." I do wonder how Time knew Great was there. Did he somehow track his license plates? Great doesn't entertain the opening to talk. He just faces forward again. "Can I sit next to you?" Time asks. I like how this scene cuts between close ups on their faces, then shots from the middle distance. Like we, as the audience, are voyeurs into this moment. We know it's not real, but Time is desperately trying to create a sense of intimacy between them. He needs to get closer to Great fast. What is his purpose in this timeline? We'll find out. Great nods once, and Time sits. The music goes jazzy and smooth, but there's just a little something off about it. To me, it sounded just a touch mechanical, almost like jazz put through auto tune, putting us just enough on edge to know something isn't quite right. Time is flirting with all his might, and Great is giving clipped one word answers. When Time asks what's good there, Great slides his own glass down the bar and says, "Liquor." Pointedly, he keeps the glass on the far side of his hand, retracting it as soon as the glass touches Time. No chance for any accidental touches. Time takes a sip of Great's drink, like an indirect kiss, and says the most obvious pickup line even I, in all my obliviousness, saw coming. "I think there's something else more interesting." "What?" Great asks, making him work for it. Time pushes the glass back over, like Great did to him, with his hand on the outside edge, until the glass is touching both their hands. They're indirectly holding hands, indirectly touching with the glass as the mediator. The glass is clear, as easy to see through as their seemingly nonchalant behavior, but it's full of dark liquor, obscuring their truths. Great smirks and looks at Time. Time looks back. Next thing we know, they're back at Great's place, doing what grown-up strangers do when they go home from bars together. It's so different from their time in the tent. Whereas in the timeline we know it was warm and golden and safe, both of them reaffirming that they were alive and they'd saved saved each other, and they were bearing themselves to the other for the first time. This moment is very dark, with sharp shadows creating deep contrast. They're strangers. They don't know each other. This isn't anything deep or meaningful. Great says Time is so drunk, can he even do it? Implying perhaps that the liquor might affect Time's performance. I wonder, is it really liquor affecting Time like this? Or is it that this is just a means to an end for Time, a way to get one over on the family he despises, to have something he can use against them? Is that why he's having early onset performance issues? The music is also harsh, more drums and synth than sweet piano or guitar like before. I can't go into too much detail, but this scene is very different from their time in the tent. Gone is the sweet tenderness, the silliness, them laughing with each other because they can be vulnerable. There is no vulnerability in this moment. It's exactly what it appears to be, a casual hookup between strangers. I will say at one point, Great lays on his back on the pool table and hits a ball into the corner pocket. Which ball? Why, the four ball, of course. This scene is also as cool toned as it can be while still semi realistically taking place in someone's home, a setting we've been, and having the actors still look human. There's a ton of blue light used, doing its best to counteract any warmth in the scene. Also, I couldn't help but remember all the times I got yelled at as a kid for putting my drink on a pool table. Everyone said it would ruin the felt. But what these two were doing on this pool table seems much worse. This is also most definitely the scene from the trailer. You know, that scene. Very interesting. It's their hookup from a previous timeline, not the pivotal relationship moment that we got in Great's changed version of events. I'm not going to show any screen caps out of respect for BOC's request that recappers not, but they both look so good. Great takes a moment to go to the bathroom, and Time takes the opportunity to sneak around the apartment and set up what I can only assume is a hidden spy camera disguised as a pen. Time, how underhanded. Great isn't even doing the crimes you're worried about. I mean, he did other crimes, but not the gambling ones. Time doesn't know about Great's crimes. Time also happens upon an entire drawer full of product placement protection. I'm just happy that Great's being safe. For some reason, he also takes off his necklace. Great exits the bathroom, and their activities resume. Next thing we know, Time is in his childhood bedroom where we saw him read his mother's diary, importing his illicit video onto an ancient looking laptop. I'll give it to him. He does seem conflicted about whatever he's going to do next. Blackmail Great with the video, I assume. But the room is dark and cold, shrouding him in the frozen, crystalline rage of vengeance. He looks at the photo of him and his mom and steels himself. He saves the video and shares it. With whom? I think we're about to find out. Winnie, what? Lay down. I'm really not sure who he ends up sharing it with, but the scene changes to a woman rushing into Great's dad's office, asking if he's seen this. Then, later, Great walks into his dad's office. He asks, "Sup, Dad?" in English, and his dad explodes, throwing a handful of papers at him and saying, "I never thought you'd be like this. Who's the guy in the clip?" Great looks down. The papers are screenshots from the video of his night with Time, the video he didn't know was being taken. All at once, Great steels himself. You can almost see him processing the information. He was betrayed, recorded without his consent, then blasted online by someone he thought he had some kind of connection with, if only a fleeting one. His expression processes all of this with lightning speed before he crosses his arms, physically closing himself off and bracing himself to verbally spar with his father. Great plays it off, pretending he doesn't remember the guy, as if there are so many he couldn't be bothered to remember their names. The dad yells at him to leave, and Great's expression cracks. He looks angry, frustrated, and almost expectant. Like he wanted more from his dad. What he wanted, I'm not sure. Concern, maybe? His dad to push more? Does he think since his dad is backing down so easily, he doesn't care? To Great, maybe his dad's overbearing attitude and anger was the only expression of love that he ever got. Regardless, Great follows the order and leaves. The scene changes to Time telling his grandma to go to their Aunt Jing's house and lay low for a while. The same things are happening on a much more accelerated timeline. They have a very touching conversation with the grandma telling Time she loves him before going off in the taxi. A voiceover of Time saying, "You found me pretty fast," prompts a scene change to him in Great's dad's office, or some kind of office at least. It keeps things very snappy and quick, which I'm appreciating because we're recapping kind of like 6 episodes in one. Great's dad is eating, which is very symbolically important for this confrontation. He's seated, having a meal, while Time is standing over him, but so far away he isn't threatening. Traditionally, we eat with people we like and or love. That's why business dinners can be so awkward. Breaking bread with someone implies trust, or at least a deeper connection than strangers. Great's dad is eating in this meeting not to show he trusts Time or likes him, but to establish from the jump that he sees Time as so far beneath him to not inspire any speck of notice. He needs to fit this meeting with Time in between more important things, so he'll meet with Time while he's eating. It implies Great's dad doesn't see Time as a threat, similar to the same scene in our timeline where Great's dad is eating with Time's grandma at the table. Slightly less of an invasive violation, but Time is more of a threat in our timeline than this one. With Great on his side, he's infinitely more dangerous than he is alone. The confrontation goes similarly, with Time mentioning his parents and Great's dad offering him money to just make him go away. We do learn some new explosive information. Time says he won't back down until Great's dad admits he killed Time's parents and stops his vile business. Great's dad just smiles. I didn't kill your parents, he says. And another thing, if you're thinking about exposing my vile business, in the end, it'll lead back to the source. And the truth is, the owner who started this gambling business was your parents. When I tell you, I was shocked. I was shook, one might say. If this is true, it must be true in our timeline as well. It all happened so long ago, it would have progressed the same way prior to Great and Time meeting, prior to Great's deviation with his 4 minutes power. I don't know why this wasn't revealed in the original timeline, but I was genuinely shocked. Maybe it wasn't revealed because Time wasn't as adamant about pursuing the truth, and Great's family's downfall since he knew Great better and had a different perspective about having things to lose. Time, of course, says he must be lying. Great's dad says if he continues down the road he's on, he'll discover truths that are better left unknown. He also says Time's grandmother would be heartbroken if she knew that vile money paid for the house they lived in. Great's dad also warns Time the other partners in the gambling business aren't as nice as him, and if he were Time, he would do nothing. Time returns to his home. It's empty and dark. Any warmth and life sucked out of it. Any joy Time had in the memories of his life there, gone in the wake of the revelations about his parents. Is it true? How could it be? But why would Great's dad lie about it if it wasn't? It's too absurd to be a lie. The next day, Time goes to work, and who should appear but Great, smirking in all his haughty prince glory. This is the first time I'm seeing a little bit of Vegas in Great's character, a little bit of the brash, devil-may-care rich boy who values a concerning number of things before his own life. Time looks worried. He steps back and glances around, asking what Great is doing there. Picking up my meds, Great says innocently. Time tries to walk off, but Great blocks his path. Great is smug, like a predator who knows he's already cornered his prey, even if the prey doesn't realize it yet. Why haven't you answered my texts? Great asks, the same placid, smug smirk on his face. Step aside, Time says. Great ignores him. Let's have dinner tonight. No way. Great pointedly looks around at the crowded halls full of Time's coworkers and shouts, we can go to your favorite spot, proving he's not afraid to out Time, at least a little bit. Some revenge, I'd say, for what Time did to him. But blackmail only works if the other party cares, and Great doesn't seem to. It's so different from when Time asks Great to dinner, it's almost comical. So they go to dinner. It's a little food stall on a pier, and Great is so out of his element but refuses to let it show. Time orders for them, and Great tries to edit the order to his preferences. He can't eat spicy food and he doesn't like garlic, but Time drags him away. They get their food, and Great forces himself to try it, even though it's loaded with chili and garlic. He starts coughing, and we kind of see some of the awkward charm they have in our timeline. But this isn't that time. Their grim fates are already set in motion. You really don't know? Time asks. Know what? About the clip. Gray just laughs into his bowl of inedible noodles. I was about to ask, why haven't you posted it on OnlyFans? So you could make money. He's giving us his best careless prince attitude and also getting in a dig at Time about being poor. Time is exasperated. Aren't you embarrassed? Gray just says, the only one who's embarrassed is my dad, not me. Did you do it to get famous? Oh, but I forgot. The clip doesn't show your face. So, why did you do it? Because your family's business is Time says. Great is shocked and says, huh? Time tells Great to take back his dad's money, that he doesn't want it since it's dirty. Great looks almost manically gleeful and asks, are you fighting with my dad? Wow, wicked. Did you come up with a plan all by yourself? Wow, impressive. Great continues to make impressed noises and eat his fire noodles, and Time's face changes. Great's reaction wasn't at all like Time expected, just like this whole business with the blackmail didn't turn out like he intended. But in this moment, his expression softens. It's like he's seeing Great for the first time, seeing him as a real, complex person rather than a means to an end. Their meal ends and they walk along the river. Great asks why Time won't let him drive him home, and Time says it's pointless when the train is so close by. A dog barks and Great hides behind Time. Time teases Great for still being afraid of dogs. I guess being afraid of dogs is like a common kid thing in Thailand. I mean, not to say that there aren't kids in America that are also afraid of dogs, but like I wouldn't go into an interaction assuming a young person is afraid of dogs. I don't know. Time then says that he did his research, and I'm wondering what kind of research it was for him to know Great has been afraid of dogs since he was a kid. Anyway, he grabs Great's hand to keep walking, and when I tell you my heart jerked, I had to pause. I had to pause to like soak in the moment. You really have to be on some kind of soulmate stuff to meet the way that they have in this timeline via a S3X tape blackmail and still have a connection like this. We're getting their usual music too, soft piano. They make it to a crosswalk, very symbolic, just like a bridge. One side or the other, past or future, before or after. Once you cross, you've crossed. Even if you go back, you'll never have not crossed that road again. Great asks where Time is going. Time says, home. Great asks if he wants to hook up. They tease each other a bit back and forth, and Great finishes with something to the effect of, what, didn't you really want me that day? Basically saying, when we hooked up, didn't you really want me? It wasn't just for blackmail, right? Right? Time sighs and says, Great, I'm being serious. We shouldn't see each other again. Great's expression just breaks my heart. He knows how they started, of course, with the clip and the blackmail, but I think he thought he and Time had something real, something outside of his family and their web of connections. Or he felt so lonely and desperate for someone, anyone, to reach out to him. He was willing to disregard all the bad stuff about Time to try and connect with someone else. Time also looks unbearably sad when he finishes. Let's part ways here. At the crosswalk, the crossroads, the greatest parting of ways. I wonder if they both felt something in that moment. There's a sound effect in the music, almost like a swooshing slice, like their connection severing forever. I wonder if it felt as wrong to them as it does to us, even though in this timeline, they don't know what they could have been to each other. But maybe they did know, or at least suspected. Maybe something deep in their bones, in the very cells of their blood, recognized each other, that they were meant to meet, meant to know each other, meant to love each other. But time cut them short before they ever really had a chance. Too scared, too committed to his mission for anything else. Great walks a few steps after him, as if pulled, as if the red string of fate truly linked them, pulling Great after time, like now that they'd met, now that they'd connected, they weren't supposed to part again. Like fate was trying to tell them what they were too stubborn, too blind, too human to realize. They were meant for each other. They were meant to save each other. If only they could see it. Time walks off screen and leaves Great alone in a tiny, weak puddle of light, valiantly trying to keep the darkness all around him at bay. In the middle of the road, in the middle of the crossroads, all alone, abandoning the path they were supposed to walk together. Great's brow furrows. It feels wrong to be parted from time, to let him walk away, but he doesn't know why. They barely know each other. Why does it hurt so much for time to abandon him? Everyone else has. The only people left in his life are people who have to be there by obligation, by duty, or to save face, from Great's perspective, at least. The one time he reached out, the one time he stretched out a hand to make a connection on his own, and he's abandoned. He turns around and walks back to the other side of the road. He doesn't cross the street. The path remains untrodden, forever left to haunt him with what could have been. He calls his brother, asking if they can meet at the same place while melancholy piano music plays. The scene changes to Nan's escape. It happens the same way, the phone call, she's shot in the leg, throwing her phone in the water. But this time, we see Time as he's also there. He sees Korn exit the building and follows him to the bar where he meets up with Great. It's interesting to see things that still happen in the same way, even between timelines. I like how this scene with Time in the car and Korn in the boat almost parallels them. They're both on a mission to prove themselves to their families, though Time is seeking revenge and Korn is seeking approval and power. They both live at least half in the shadows, concealing their true natures from almost everyone around them. They're both after something similar, yet diametrically opposed as land and water. We see the same confrontation in the bar with a masked Time holding Korn at knife point. The same fight, Great interrupting, Time, shocked, runs off. Great chases. They fight outside the bar, but instead of Time revealing himself, Great grabs the mask and pulls it off. It isn't a moment of trust and vulnerability like it was when we saw it. Coupled with the fact that poor Great was just abandoned at the crossroads, he's understandably shocked and even more hurt. He thought this was all just some grand game, Time messing with his dad, but it's real. The consequences are real, and Great is just now getting that. Time runs off. Great goes to the hospital the next day to confront him. Events are converging, running even closer to the story we know, but the context is so incredibly different. It's staggering. Maybe that's why the shots were so distorted. The events were so similar, almost the same, but everything underneath the surface was entirely different to the original timeline. We see the conversation Great did on the roof the first time before he went back to change things. Time asking about Non, Great being confused, Time storming off. And this time, Great can't go back 4 minutes to fix it. Much like the story we know, Great goes after Non himself. He even still texts Time the location. What's funny to me is now we know that Non was just being held at the same place Time followed Korn from to go to the bar. Like, why wouldn't Time just go back there and check for Non? He saw Korn wiping blood off his hands. It's safe to assume she's there if you have literally no other leads on where to check. But regardless, in this timeline, Time doesn't try to call Great and figure out what he's doing, and Great only has one chance to do everything right. Great makes it to the door, sees Samarn pull the gun on Non. Like we saw originally, he hesitates too long. Samarn pulls the trigger. Great stumbles back, clutching his chest, almost retching from the sight of blood and brain matter splattering the glass wall. He runs. He runs down a dark, lonely street with eerie synth music playing. The music reminded me a lot of the Twin Peaks TV series, if you've ever seen it. Am I outing my age a little bit there? We see the thugs carry Non's body out into the empty dirt road. Great starts to walk off into the brush, but then we hear sounds of fighting. Great turns around. It's Time trying to fight all four of them at once. He fails and they start beating him up. Great watches from the dark, wanting to help, but too scared. Finally, when Samarn pulls a gun on Time, Great runs out of the dark and shouts for them to stop. I guess they do because the next thing we see is Great driving Time somewhere and telling him to get his wound treated. They stop in the middle of nowhere and Time gets out of the car. Great confusedly following him. Time turns around and sarcastically says, "Oh, I forgot. Thank you so much for helping me, but not helping Non." Great asks what he could have done. They had guns. Time says they had guns when they were threatening him too, and Great still did something then. They fight. Time calls Great a coward and says that he should rot in hell. Great tells Time to go die like the other one. Time grabs his shirt and screams in his face. Instead of the beautiful moment of elation they had on the bridge, reveling in their victory, they scream and fight in the dark on a barely lit road. It's not a bridge this time. It's not a choice. It's a road, and it only goes one way. They're set on a path Great can't change in this timeline, hurtling toward mutually assured destruction. The scene changes to a news broadcast. Time dropped the info on Sribot Cargo. Faw's dad is watching the news and smoking a cigarette. He leans back and exhales smoke through his nose. An angry dragon whose horde is being threatened. And there's only one way a dragon reacts to a threat. He's even got horns like a dragon. The gambling operation is shredding documents. Korn is angry. Samarn exposes Great. Great confronts his dad. "Anything you want to tell me?" Great asks his parents. Silence. "Nothing to say?" he continues. More silence. "I can't believe it, that you would do something like this." The dad says he did it for them, so they could have a company and a home, and so Great could waste all the money that he has. The mom says they almost went bankrupt before and they had to do something to infuse cash into the company. "So you saved the company by killing people?" Great asks. "Then both of you take responsibility for it. I'm leaving." Then he storms out. His mother follows, calling his name. Great and his mother have the same emotional confrontation in front of the company. Great still drives off in his car, still looks back at his mother, but there's no money. So there's no gunman waiting in the wings, no vision of his mother dying on the street to make him turn around. So off he drives. Great goes home and gets in his elevator. This is where I think Den talking about echoes comes in. He said that people will have visions of another life, but still experience similar pains to their real one, even if they might seem out of place. In episode 1, Great had a weird fit in his elevator. I think this is where Great is about to have his heart attack. Or not. Right as Great goes to close the elevator, a mysterious figure in all black stops him. My first instinct was thinking it was Toneclaw, but perhaps it's because I miss my beautiful boy. Or perhaps it's all been a red herring to distract us from the fact that Great did, in fact, help Tidal throw Dome's body in the water at the beginning of this episode, and somebody was recording. Who's to say Tidal and Great aren't the bodies Wynn has been finding in the beginning of the episodes? The figure pulls a gun on Great. Great raises his hands. The figure shoots. A direct hit to center mass, just like in our timeline when Great tries to save his mother. Has this always been Great's fate? Was there no way to avoid it? But this time, Great was alone, in the elevator, revenge sought by an avenging angel to atone for his sins. Great sinks to the ground. The figure in black looks at his hands, as if he can't quite believe what he's done. And let's be real, it's Toneclaw. I know my boy. That's absolutely his wicked, grinning face, reveling in his revenge. Boom, baby. When we were all distracted by illicit gambling rings and dramatic interpersonal disputes, we forgot the greatest force of all: love. Toneclaw loved his little brother, the only person he had left in the world. Tidal and Great took Dome away from him, but Toneclaw wasn't going to let that stand. Great's hand, clutching his wound, falls to the ground. The episode ends. I did like this episode overall. It filled in some gaps from our timeline, and it was a very interesting insight into the original way that things would have played out without Great's 4 minutes power. But it does make me wonder about Toneclaw being stuck in the old timeline. Or maybe we were just seeing flashes of him in the OG timeline and the new one, like maybe they were going back and forth. I am sad we didn't get anything new, especially since there's only 2 episodes left. Since this was entirely a flashback or flash adjacent, we're going to have to resolve everything in 2 episodes. However, considering everything this creative team can put into just 1 episode, I genuinely have faith in them. What do you think about this episode? It wasn't my favorite, like episode 5 also wasn't my favorite, but again, it felt necessary to move the story forward and bring the audience up to speed. All the gaps have been filled in. We kind of know how everything has played out from multiple points of view. I am sad that the big NC scene from the trailer was like for evil blackmailing purposes, but oh well. I'm curious to see what will happen when our new timeline picks back up. It makes me think Tidal will play a bigger role in the finale than we think, considering the big dramatic moment in this episode centered around Dome 2 in the form of Toneclaw. We think we know the biggest danger, then a sleeper threat jumps in from the side to catch us off guard. Also, what if Tidal is Faw's brother? Like, what if their dad is the same dad and he's the shareholder guy who offed the guy with the red umbrella and who's also like, I'll help you corn if you marry Faw. Like, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they're related. When Great wakes up, will the timeline still be the one we know? Will it be a mix of them? Did Great actually change anything or just imagine he did? Will he remember everything when he wakes up or nothing? I also wonder if Great and Toneclaw have ever had any idea who the other is. Like, is it funny haha or funny weird that you shot your sugar daddy's little brother? As always, I'm extremely excited for the next episode, and I hope all of you are too. I hope all of you enjoyed it. Please leave your thoughts, any commentary, suggestions, build off of anything I mentioned in this video in the comments. I absolutely love hearing from all of you. And please make sure to follow me on my other social medias. I also love hearing from you guys over there. And I'm super close to 7,000 followers on TikTok, and I would love if we could get me there soon. Yay! All right, that's all for today, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.